to African Teapot Podcast. My name is Exie and I'm your host. Do you have a story or message for a loved one? Or do you wish to inspire our listeners this Valentine with a story or message you want to share? Please email us at africanteapot@gmail.com or on Instagram at African_teapot. Journey with me through Africa's vast variety of culture, heritage, and discuss issues most African families face, both home and abroad. Make sure you add this podcast to your frequent podcast rotations, and don't forget to share and follow this podcast. Hello listeners, and thank you so much for tuning in yet again for another episode on African Teapot. And today's episode is titled Cultural Appropriation versus Cultural Appreciation. And before I get into that, just want to make sure that we are all doing okay. We had a wonderful week. And if you didn't, hopefully the weekend you kind of distressed and you'll be looking forward to the new week, in a positive note. And that being said, I have 2 birthday shout outs today, and I'm pretty excited about it. The first is Ernest Kasim. Hopefully you do have a wonderful birthday. Well, I know you did. We talked about it, but happy birthday again, and you get to have a blast and everything that you are trying to get this year or trying to, put your mind to this year, you get to have blessings on it, right? They do come true for you. And the second, not the least, but very important birthday is an in-house birthday. So it is Lyris's birthday, and Lyris is my youngest sister. Just in case you're wondering, that means you're new to the show. But she is my youngest sister, and she has co-hosted 2 episodes with me. So you have the Christmas episode and a New Year episode. And if you want to know how fun she is, what she gets to contribute, and how just amazing of a person she is, then you can check out those episodes. But we are busting it down for her. I think we're busting it down all month for her. And if you know her, you know this is a special birthday for her. She's super excited, and I'm excited, and that's why I'm super excited on, today's episode. But hopefully she has a blast. I know we will, and we'll try to make it special for her, right? Okay, so one thing that I wanted to put out there is this episode is the first episode of our kickoff couple of episodes. We have 4 episodes which represent Black History Month, because here in the States it's Black History Month, and I know that there will be a lot of talk, celebration about Black culture, and it will be mostly about Black leaders out of continent Africa. So I thought here on African Teapot, since we are all about our mother continent, we should look at those father figures and mother figures of the continent and of our various nations that contributed to the story that we are trying to put out here today. So I'm just going to go ahead and make that quick safari drive and a safari drop to South Africa. Do you know you can now leave direct voice messages to the show, and it might just end up in future episodes? It is one of the quickest ways to get in touch with me and leave your contributions to the show. Just follow the voice message link on the show notes, and hope to hear from you soon. Why are we making a stop in South Africa, you may ask, out of curiosity? But we are making a stop in South Africa today to celebrate Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela is known worldwide. He is celebrated worldwide. But let's take a minute to understand that he is from South Africa, and to realize that the biggest heroes, or some of the heroes that fought for Black liberation and Black movements, did not only come from outside of Africa. We also had people within Africa that fought for the culture we are, enjoying today, or sharing today, or protecting today, right? So before I get into those 5 fun facts of Nelson Mandela, let's look at South Africa generally today. So the Republic of South Africa is found in Southern Africa, as the name indicates, right? It has a population of about 59 million people. 80% of that population is made up of Black African ancestry, and 20% is made up of multi-racial ancestry. It has 3 capital cities, and it is surrounded by the South Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean, And to the north, it is surrounded by Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. The largest city in South Africa is Johannesburg. And the constitution recognizes 11 official languages in South Africa, guys. I'm just going to give you the top 4. That is Zulu, Xhosa, Afrikaans, and English. And English is the most publicly and commercially used language in South Africa. Now, let us look at those 5 fun facts that you may or may not know about Nelson Mandela. Some I didn't know until I did research on him. But one is his actual name, or his birth name, is Rolila Mandela, and Nelson was given to him by his primary school teacher, because back then they have to give pupils Christian names, as they would say. Fun fact 2. His college degree started in 1931, but he was expelled for protesting against university policies. So he got his law degree in 1989 from the University of South Africa during the last months of his imprisonment. Fun fact 3. He and his cousin were threatened by the king of his village after he was expelled from the University College Fort Hare with an arranged marriage. Like, when I heard that, I was like, what? So that's fun, right? Like, that's something I didn't know myself. And fun fact 4, he was released from prison in 1990 by President Frederick William de Klerk, and they both share a Nobel Peace Prize. And fun fact, not the last or least, 5, says, this was like amazing to me when I heard this or read this. The year he was elected president of South Africa was also the first year, guys, that he voted in an election at the age of 76. And this was back in 1994. That's to tell you how long he was imprisoned for, and that's to tell you how long he fought to abolish this evil practice back then, apartheid, right? So I thought I should just share that, and we should take today to celebrate the legacy of Nelson Mandela. Now let us get into our topic for today, which I did mention earlier, which is cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. I thought this worked perfectly well, and it is time that we have the conversation because there is a lot of confusion about it. And so many people, you see celebrities on TV or radio, they're getting into trouble because people are saying, well, that's cultural appropriation, and they're upset. They're saying, oh, well, no, I'm just representing, a people or a minority group or something like that. So first, to make sure that everyone is clear on what it is, the first thing is you need to know when you're appreciating somebody's culture and when you're appropriating somebody's culture. So let us start by defining what it is. Cultural appreciation is when someone seeks to understand and learn about another culture in an effort to broaden their perspective with others culturally. So if someone is speaking to you and you can tell that they want to learn more about you and about where you come from, that is cultural appreciation. If they're using something or showing you something or talking about something and it's coming from a perspective where they know what they're talking about, they have done some research and background on what they're saying, and not just spitting out stereotypes, right? Then that is cultural appreciation. Now let us look at cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation is when you're adopting an aspect of a culture that is not your own and using it for your personal benefit or interest. So it's kind of like when you're cherry picking. So when you go to a culture, you don't necessarily understand who they are, but you are choosing something to use from that culture. Then that's when we are saying that you are appropriating that culture, right? You're not respecting the people that culture belongs to. So because when you say this, many people go, oh, what is the difference? Or what difference does it make? So I must learn something before I appreciate something that I've seen. There are some examples I have and why I thought this topic really works for this time. So let me just tell you guys a little story. So when I was talking about this upcoming episode to my coworker, she had a rather interesting story to share. So her mom is white American, but her dad is Nigerian. And she said they went to a potluck, this youth potluck. She attended this youth potluck they have. And this white American guy showed up putting on a dashiki. And the moment he showed up, everyone was interested in what he was wearing. He had a lot of questions. And he said he got it from an African missionary. And this African missionary was a pastor. And they gave the dashiki to him. And he liked it so much that when he got here, his kids and wife liked it. And he had to order more online. And they asked him, where did you order it? Was it like the tailor or what? And he said, well, he just ordered it online. And he was saying, and he went further to say they put on those dashikis, his entire family, and did a TikTok video. You know, the TikTok video going viral, eating African food, the fufu and pepper soup and whatever. He said they did that video, and he went ahead to pull up the video, and people were so excited. They were like asking to follow him. You know, he was talking about how so many likes it is, and he was like, they asked him, so where did you meet this missionary? Right? And he said he had a chance to travel to Africa, and he met them. They were so nice. They gave him some beads, but he's lost it. And they were just like, so how is it there? They were asking him so many questions. And they like, do they have houses there? And he was saying whatever he knew, And so my coworker said she was rather upset because she's like, she is African. She lived and grew in Nigeria. And nobody's asking her the question. There was another Nigerian guy over there. Another lady from Liberia they were there. They're all like in the same youth group. And it's like, why are you asking the white guy about Africa? Why can't you ask the Africans that are right there? Ask them about their culture. Why are you asking about their culture from somebody who clearly went to visit, had a sponsored trip by his church and went to visit for 3 weeks and got back? Why are you asking about their culture from him? Are you trying to say they would lie about their culture? Are you saying, oh, he has more expertise on the African culture because he's white? You understand? Why is the conversation popular with the white guy, with the non-African guy? Why is it that what he's saying is way more interesting to you than actually asking the questions from those who were brought or those who represent that culture? More to say, right? Okay, so I want to ask you this question. Do you think he was appropriating our African culture there, or he was appreciating it? If the answer to that question is, oh, he wasn't appropriating anything, then you still haven't understood the difference between appropriation and appreciating. And I would suggest that you rewind 4 minutes behind to hear me define and differentiate between the two. But if your answer is he's appropriating it, then you are right. Because it's one thing because he was using the African culture right there to be popular, to get likes on social media, right? And to just create attention for himself. That's why he was saying he was associating himself with the African culture. He wanted his TikTok likes or his social media likes based off of that post he did to be high. So he intentionally wore the dashiki because he knew when he comes with the dashiki, people will ask, right? And what he wanted is exactly what he got. And that is why different cultures, not just African culture, minority cultures always complain about appropriation. Like people take your culture, they cherry pick, they pick what they want to pick, use it for their benefit, and then when it comes to talking about that culture, they're ignorant about it. Or when it comes to talking about that culture, they don't care. We can be out here talking about Black Lives Matter. We're out here saying, hey, we don't all live on trees and swing from trees to trees. They won't care to listen. But the moment he puts on a fabric that looks different, or they'll be like, oh, it looks exotic or something, immediately you want to associate yourself with that culture. You want to act as though you are so informed about it, whereas you are not. That is what we're complaining about. That is what appropriation is. Next week on African Teapot, we have a very special Valentine's treat from us to you. That would be a bonus episode next week. Stay tuned, guys. Sometimes, I'm not saying we're perfect. Sometimes I've heard Africans say things and I go, you shouldn't say that. That's a stereotype. Like, you shouldn't be talking about that. But being Black History Month, it's like we want to say our stories ourselves. We want to represent our stories ourselves. And we want that people should learn about our story, not just popping up, buying something that is clear, that would make you visually come across as you know something about the African culture, and then you spit out stereotypes and act as though they are facts, right? Those are the people that smear whatever history or culture we are trying to put out here. It's like Kim Kardashian, like putting on braids on her hair, and people are like, well, it's just a hairstyle. Well, she didn't know what the braids were. She doesn't know why African women put on braids. And second, you have black celebrities, Gabrielle Union, you have people who put on braids. We don't see them on TV, them having like a whole segment talking about their hairstyle. We don't see that. But immediately Kim Kardashian puts it on, it's like it's on Hot Topics. It's like it's on Access Hollywood. It's on the Today Show. It's like they're talking about her hairstyle. But you have African celebrities wearing box braids, wearing these cornrows every day, and nobody talks about it. And they have good cultural reasons for putting on those braids. We African women know that. We don't braid our hair just for the sake that we want to put extensions in it. You have reasons for braiding your hair, right? You're managing your hair. We have reasons. That's just a topic on its own. But it's like those things happen for different reasons. But I'm like, look at this other coworker. He showed up with Kenyan tea bags. And he was like, oh my gosh, I love this tea. And I was like, oh yeah, where did you get it? Or, where did you go to the African store? He said, yes. He called, his friend had given him these African tea bags and he really loved them. So he called him and asked where he could get them. And he went and got the tea bags. And he was like, it's interesting how it is manufactured. And I was like, what do you mean? And he went ahead to tell me how, the process that they go to make their tea bags and how these tea bags helps children who pick the tea, or helps them for their school fees, and how, like, just how the process works, how the economy benefits from those tea bags. And he's like, it's so touching, to the point that in his house he just goes to that African store and that's the only tea they drink. I'm not saying he can't drink other tea, but the way he sounded means he went further to understand why this tea bag is so special. Like, why did you give me this tea bag? And this guy was like, oh, every tea bag you buy, this percentage goes back to this foundation that they feed, blah, 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 in Africa. I'm rushing through it, but just want to let you know the difference between someone talking about somebody's culture and sounding like they were interested in knowing, they were interested in being part of that culture, rather than being in the struggle of that culture, rather than you picking out a hairstyle. And then when they're talking about Black Lives Matter or whatever, you don't care. You don't care about every other thing, but you just care about the hairstyle. You don't care about any other thing about the African culture, but you just care about the dashiki that you conveniently put on when you want something that fits your agenda. That is what appropriation is. If you want to appreciate my culture, have conversations with me. Be patient to listen to what I'm saying. You can't put on a dashiki and tell me, I got it from an African missionary. Where is that missionary from? They don't know. Who did you buy the dashiki from? Is it like an African tailor? Who? You don't know where you got it. You see, but you're representing that culture. You're talking about it as though you are an expert. That is what offends some of the questions we get as Africans or as people of any minority culture. That is what is so offensive about it. And that is what we mean by cultural appropriation. Don't pick at the things that you think are good from a culture and then you act as though you're representing a culture. But when that culture has struggles, you don't want to identify with them, or you make as though the struggles they're not a big deal. But yet you buy a necklace from that culture and it's a big deal to you, right? You post it, you want to be popular for it. But anyways, I just thought I should say this out there, and this should just get us thinking. And if you are someone who does this with other cultures, appropriate other cultures, you would check yourself, or before you post or say things about people's culture, you would think to yourself, why are you saying it? And what I'm saying, how true is it? And then you would make sure you're not offending anyone. Okay? So I will see you guys next week for yet another episode. Thank you for listening, guys. Thank you for listening, and hope you join me for the next episode. You can always reach us via email at africanteapot@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at African_teapot.